Hello, everyone, and welcome to another live session with immigrationquestion.com. In these sessions, we cover important topics for immigrants, both documented and undocumented, focusing on legal status in the United States. Our goal is to answer as many of your questions as possible. I'm Nikita, and I'll be your host for today. Imagine building a life in the United States, creating friendships, growing your family, and maybe even building a career, only to have the shadow of uncertain legal status looming over you. It can feel overwhelming, and the options may seem unclear. But today, we're here to show you that there are ways forward. Our topic for today: pathways to legalization, options for those out of status, is here to help you explore these possibilities and take steps towards changing your status. And to help us unpack these options, we're joined by an experienced immigration attorney. She's based in Florida and the founder of USA for All. And she holds an MBA in project management from Nova Southeastern University. With years of expertise and a true passion for guiding people through the immigration process, please join me in welcoming Attorney Renata Castro. We're so excited to have you with us today.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk about what's my real passion, which is to make the American dream a reality for as many people as possible, Nikita.
Thank you so much, Renata. To everyone watching, get ready for an exciting session. Grab your notepads and pens and let's dive in. Attorney Castro, for someone out of status, the journey to legalization can be overwhelming. Where does one even begin?
The first step when you are someone in the United States without status is to seek the help of a licensed immigration attorney. I can't begin to tell you how many times my practice has been able to help thousands of undocumented aliens who found a way back or into a status, but they spent years in shame and fear, thinking that they didn't qualify for an immigration benefit because their friend, a consultant, an unlicensed professional told them so. I'll give you an example. I've had an individual who sought the help of a school to change their immigration status into a student visa. The school said, "You do not need a lawyer. We can take care of this." The school messed up his application to change status. And once it was denied, the school said, "Sorry, can't help you." Well, guess what? 3 years later, he finally decided to come and seek our help. And we were able to do a retroactive change of status, showing that he had been improperly helped by someone who engaged in a licensed practice of law. And now this person has their green card. This was a few years ago, but this is just a great example of how the wrong help hurts and how the first step is to seek a licensed immigration attorney.
Interesting. So, how can family sponsorships or employment opportunities serve as pathways to legalization?
This is a great question. Let's say that you're in the United States and you are an undocumented adult. And the reason why I say adults, because a lot of people think that once you're older than 21, your family cannot help you if you have a mother or a father who is a green card holder or a US citizen. So there are a few ways. Number one, if you are older than 21 and you're in the United States without status, but your mom or dad has a green card, they don't need to be a citizen. They can actually be the lawful presence waiver if you have an employer in the United States willing to do a labor certification application for you. And the only reason why I bring this up is because this is a shorter process than if you petition through your parent. If your parent's a US citizen and you are a married adult, you can be petitioned through him or her and receive a green card. It takes a while, but that's a pathway for you. In some professions, some individuals who are DACA holders and who are
Mhm.
adults, they may be able to receive a work visa under the H-2B category. But this is a little more complex to explain in such a short period of time. However, I just want to plant the seed that there are opportunities especially for those who are in the United States without status and who have a mother or a father who is a lawful permanent resident, green card holder, or a U.S. citizen.
So, Attorney Castro, can you tell us what types of waivers are available and how they can help individuals out of status?
That's a great question. If you don't have status in the United States and you're looking to receive a waiver for unlawful presence, you can petition under the I601A, which is an unlawful presence waiver, a provisional waiver. A lot of people think that this waiver is only for those who entered without a visa, who entered through the border, but that's not true. That is for anyone who, in some circumstances, have accumulated unlawful presence and who entered through the border, entered without inspection. It is a very accessible waiver. The caveat is that you need to have a qualifying relative for whom you will show hardship, meaning mom, dad, husband, or wife who is a U.S. citizen or a lawful permanent resident. If you enter the United States, another very commonly used waiver is if you enter the United States with a fake immigration document, fake passport, fake visa. As long as you did not use a fake American passport, you're going to need a fraud waiver. So you may need to file an I-601. Now, a waiver that very few people know exists is what's called a Harka waiver. Harnka. And this is named after the matter of Harka, which is a case of jurisprudence within immigration law. And this is available to anyone, even those who don't have a relative who is a lawful permanent resident or U.S. citizen, and they're asking for a non immigrant visa, meaning this is going to be judged by the consulate. So if you lived in the United States without status and now you're trying to petition for a tourist visa, you could be using a Harka waiver. If you lived without status, departed, but you are a member of a profession that's in high demand or of the interest of the national security in the United States, you could petition for a Harka waiver. So these are just a few examples of alternatives that could be accessible to those watching this information session and they may not know about.
Interesting. Now, I would like us to touch on temporary protection measures. What are they and how can someone determine if they qualify?
Some temporary protection measures will depend on whether or not, or on the type of status that person has at that time. And what do I mean by that? Individuals who are at risk of deportation are obviously afraid of the execution of that order. A lot of people confuse deportation with the act of being deported. Deportation is the sentence that the judge issues. Now, the act of being removed is the physical act of being, placed on a plane and taken away from the United States. So some individuals may qualify for a stay of removal, which is where you have a deportation order, but you ask for humanitarian or legal reasons that the US government allow you to remain in the United States even though you have a removal order. In some cases, if you're filing an appeal, this stay of removal could be automatic. In other cases, you need to make an active request to the government. So if you have an immigration case pending with USCIS, that does not mean that you cannot be removed or detained. All it means is that you have a pathway to an immigration benefit. So if you are in removal proceedings, you're in front of an immigration judge, you don't have to worry about a stay of removal. But if the immigration judge has already ordered you removed, gave you a removal order, you want to consider a stay of removal as soon as possible.
Thank you for that, Attorney Castro. Welcome to our audience if you're just joining us. We're thrilled to have Attorney Renata Castro with us today, a respected immigration expert who's contributed greatly to today's topic. This is immigrationquestion.com, a platform that makes immigration easier. Ask your questions in any language and get connected with a verified attorney who can provide legal guidance. You may even get a free confidential consultation. Visit www www.immigrationquestion.co.za. Sorry, it's www.immigrationquestion.com and sign up today. Attorney Castro, as someone who helps immigrants every day, what are your thoughts on immigrationquestion.com and how it supports the immigrant community?
Anything that is designed to connect competent immigration attorneys with hopeful immigrants uh, it deserves my recognition. So, anyone who is out there afraid or concluding that they may not have an immigration pathway, I believe that you should change all of your preconceptions and start by going after a licensed immigration attorney. So, why not use a platform that allows you to do just that? Have access to qualified, competent, licensed legal help that could really change your life.
Thanks, Attorney Castro. This has been a great conversation. Now it's time for questions and answers. Drop your questions in the chat and we'll answer as many as we can. Or if you'd like to ask live, call us on 516 703 3483. Attorney Castro, before we get into the live Q&A, what mistakes or actions might jeopardize a case and how can individuals protect themselves?
One of the things I see most frequently is people living a dual life, meaning they are arguing or they're presenting to immigration that they are one thing. So, for example, they are in the United States with a student visa, which does not allow them to work. And then online, they're offering their services and USCIS and the government is more and more using artificial intelligence and facial recognition to search for evidence that this person is violating their immigration status in the United States. So if you're going to be in the United States with a visa, with a non-immigrant visa, you want to be careful. You want to preserve your status as much as you can. Another way that I see frequently is once again relying on the help of unqualified individuals who may be presenting questionable documents in support of your application. Nikita, I have seen individuals who lost their immigration benefit because they were working with a notario or a paralegal who had submitted fraudulent documents in their application and they had no idea. So make sure that you're working with a licensed professional so you don't
Mhm.
fall prey to these scams that could turn your American dream into a nightmare.
Yes, that is true. Just a reminder to our audience, drop your questions in the chat or you may call in on 516 703 3483. So we have a question from uh, Christiana. My tourist visa have expired few months ago, but I'm working now. Can I change my status without leaving the country?
It's a great question, Christiana. Now, if you're working and you enter with a tourist visa, you're in violation of your status, which I'm sure you know. However, there's a law called 245K. 245K protects you if you are eligible for a work green card if you have not violated your status for more than 183 days. So this may be a possibility. If you are without status for more than 180 days, it, it is unlikely that you would qualify for any kind of immigration benefit without leaving the country. Now, there's a caveat. A lot of undocumented individuals are victims of human trafficking, and they have no idea that that employer who was employing them in the United States without status is taking advantage of them and could be committing human trafficking, thus qualifying the immigrant for an immigration benefit. So, my is that before you make a decision that you don't have any recourse in the United States, seek the help of a licensed, experienced immigration attorney so that your specific case could be analyzed to the best of your possibilities.
That was a great answer, Tony Castro. So we have another question from uh, Yana. I So her child is born in the United States, but undocumented. But she's undocumented. She asks, "Can I get protection or status through my child?"
Yeah, now this is a very common conception that if you have a US citizen child, that you can get protection through that child. And unfortunately, an American citizen child only extends a benefit to you once that child is 21 years old. And if you enter the United States with inspection, meaning if you enter through the border or with a fraudulent visa, you cannot get papers through your child. Now, if you've been in the United States for over 10 years and you're placed in removal proceedings, you may qualify for something called cancellation of removal if you can show that extreme hardship would be imposed on your American citizen child. But the mere assertion that you have a US citizen child would not grant you any benefit, unfortunately, until that child's 21 years old.
Hmm. Thanks for that, Attorney Castro. I think we have another question from Tyrone. I have been here for many years and don't have legal status, but I'm afraid to go back to my country. Can I apply for asylum or something else?
Tyrone, when we discuss asylum, asylum can be applied at any time if, one, you have been in the United States physically for up to a year, or if there was an extraordinary circumstance which kept you from filing for asylum within that year, or the basis of your fear is one that just happened even after 20 years. I'll give you an example. We spoke to a woman from Angola who had a baby with autism. She has been in the United States for 3 or 4 years. When she entered, she did not have a child with autism. Now she does. Why is this relevant? In Angola, it is believed that children with autism are possessed or with some kind of curse. And both the mother and the child suffer awful persecution. So even though she's been in the United States for 3 or 4 years, the basis of her fear just started the moment. It's not even when the child was born, it is the moment the child was diagnosed with autism. So now she has a valid claim for asylum. So, Tyrone, asylum is very dependent on specific facts. Which country are you from? What is the basis of your fear? It is very important to formulate that so that you have higher chances of prevailing. And I hope that you will seek the help of a licensed immigration attorney to help you down this road.
Tyrone, I hope that answers your question. We should have another question coming in through from Margaret. I got a misdemeanor many years ago, but I've been in the United States for a really long time. Will it affect the chance of legalization on my status?
Uh, Nikita, one of the favorite answers an attorney gives is it depends. And the reason why I say this is when you say, will it affect the chance that Margaret has to become a lawful permanent resident? And no one really knows. I have won cases where an individual had a misdemeanor but had an overall compelling case. What is the type of misdemeanor? Immigration doesn't look to conviction as much as it looks to the specific facts of the crime. So, what is in that police report? Did you try to kill a cat and now that was reduced to a misdemeanor? Immigration will look to the specific facts of the case. Are you married to a US citizen? Are you a victim of a crime? All those variables will play a role in determining whether or not you will be impacted. But this is a very important thing. I know a lot of immigrants are apprehensive right now because we are on the verge of a lot of immigration change. You can only ascertain if something will be good or bad for your case the moment you become eligible. So if you don't have status right now, don't be anxious and don't suffer in advance of a law that could or could not happen. The moment you become eligible, then you speak to an immigration attorney and you get the ball rolling so that you have the best chances on your case. And I wish you luck, Margaret.
That was a perfect answer. Okay, so we have another question from um, Higale. I'm out of status now, but if I leave, can I apply for a visa again in the future?
Igel, if you leave the United States and you win the lottery or you develop an incredible technology, meaning you show the US government that the underlying basis, which is economic necessity mostly, which made you be in the United States without status disappeared, it's very unlikely that they will deny your case. Now, I'm from Brazil. If I lived in the United States for 23 years without status and I left, and I went to Brazil and found a job making $300 a month, it's very unlikely that the US government will give me a visa. So it is very fact specific, but remember, it's not prohibitive. A US tourist visa is luck. I always say, pray, send good vibes to that consular officer because if he wants, he can give you a visa. It's whether or not he thinks it's more likely than not for you to enter the United States and leave. So it will really be fact specific. And I hope, Miguel, you win the lottery when you leave the United States so that you can have your tourist visa.
Thank you, Tani Castro, for that. We got another question from Johan. I was working with no status before, but now I have an employer that wants to sponsor me. What should I do?
Juan, this is such a common situation because American employers, they want their immigrant employees. We are hardworking people, but a lot of times when the employer finds out that you don't have status or wants to do something, it's too late. So I don't know for how long you've been without status. So that's very relevant. How long have you been without status? Do you have a mother or father who has a green card and could be the basis of your waiver? So the place where you're going to start, what should you do? Call a licensed immigration attorney, licensed and experienced, so that you get the best advice possible applicable to your situation.
That's very true, Tani Castro. So we have another one from Jo- Jawan. So he says, I was married to a US citizen, but didn't apply for a green card before we separated. Are there any pathways I can pursue now, or does my prior marriage help at all?
Dahwan, I will take a chance and say that you are a male based on your name. And why is this relevant? Whenever you marry a US citizen and you don't have status, and the US citizen just delays and delays and delays the filing of your green card, it is usually a sign that you are a victim of domestic violence. A lot of people don't know that you can be eligible for a green card as a victim of domestic violence, if you're a man, if you are in a same-sex marriage, and if you were a victim of emotional abuse, sexual abuse, religious abuse. So can this marriage give you a benefit? Yes, it'll take the right analysis. But if there was no abuse, then just a marriage is not going to help you. And now there's something very important, Dahuan. You say that you are separated, you don't say divorced. There is a difference. Why do I emphasize this? If you are separated, you're still legally married. If you are divorced, you have up to 2 years from the date of your divorce to file for the VAWA application. So if you are divorced and it's been less than 2 years, don't walk, run. Run to speak to an immigration attorney who will likely, if he or she has the right qualifications, be able to help you and guide you into an immigration benefit you probably didn't know you could access.
That was very insightful, Sunny Castro. So we have another one from Suresh. I've heard about asylum as a pathway to legalization. Is it still possible to apply for asylum after being in the United States for many years? And what are the risks involved?
Suarez, I hope that your question brings enlightenment to a lot of people who are in the United States and are pretty desperate for an employment authorization and a pathway into legalization. When you file for asylum, it's very, very important that you speak to a licensed immigration attorney more than any other case. Why? Asylum is the only case that, when denied, gets immediately referred to an immigration judge. No other immigration case has that feature. So, if that case gets denied, you're going to have to appear now in front of an immigration judge, and the odds of receiving a deportation order are a lot higher. So, can you file for asylum after being in the US for many years? The answer is yes. If there was an extraordinary circumstance which prevented you from filing for asylum within the 1 year deadline, or the circumstance which gives rise to your asylum application just happened. So it'll depend, it's very fact specific, but make sure that you are looking at this from the lens of a qualified, licensed immigration attorney.
Thank you for that, Attorney Castro. We got another one from um, Ugama. What options are available for parents of the United States citizen children who are out of status? Can their child status help them adjust?
Ugoma, if that child is 21 years or older, yes. Now, we happen to speak to a lot of clients. I run a large full service practice. And very important to remember that if you have a US citizen child who is 21 and who doesn't want to file the petition for you because that child's abusive, many people don't know that you can be a victim of domestic violence from your US citizen child. So, Ugoma, call a lawyer, make sure that you get the best help that you can.
Okay, I think we have one more question coming through. Amit, are there programs or exemptions that forgive someone for being out of status if they meet certain conditions?
It depends. Did you become out of status through no fault of your own? Were you trafficked into the United States? Do you now qualify for asylum where you didn't before? The United States government does not forgive unlawful presence because you became very successful or based on your profession. You would need a specific law drafted to you. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen as much as we would like. So, Ahmed, you're in the right place to be connected to an immigration attorney so that you can learn more about your options. And I hope you can find one soon.
Thank you, Attorney Castro. And that is a wrap. That's the questions we have time for today. Thank you all so much for joining us, and a special thank you to our guest for sharing her time and expertise. We hope today's session on pathways to legalization options for those out of status was helpful. Visit immigrationquestion.com to connect with an experienced attorney who can guide you through your immigration journey. If you missed anything or want to rewatch, check out the recording on Spotify by searching Borderless Talk by immigrationquestion.com. Join us next week for another great session on employment based immigration with Alicia Morgan, who will discuss cancellation of removal explained, a second chance for LPRs and non LPRs. You won't want to miss it. Once again, thank you so much, Attorney Renata Castro. We can't wait to have you back.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful afternoon and see you next week.